We're now streaming live. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Canty. Appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the special board meeting of the 31st of May, 2023. I'd like to start us off by recognizing and acknowledging both the Esquimalt and Songhees nations, on whose traditional territories we live, we learn, and we do our work. We have approval of agenda next on our agenda. We have a couple of amendments, I know, to the list of community presenters, but if I could first have a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Trustee Kwan, seconded by Trustee Mabobi. So the amendments I'm aware of this evening are just to add 3 presenters to the agenda under A3, starting at C, and we'll go to E. So under C, we're adding Mark Jenkins. Under A3D will be Matt Christie. And under A3E will be Elaine Ho. Are there any other changes or amendments to the agenda, folks? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to call us to a vote. All those in favor of the amendments to the agenda, for the show of hands. Just the trustees for this one. Thank you, and that's unanimous. All right, so we have an agenda as amended, and now we're going to vote on the agenda as amended. All those in favor? And again, that is unanimous. Thank you, folks. Okay. So, we're going to launch right into community presentations, but before we do, I just want to outline for folks that maybe have not presented to us before or haven't presented to the board for a while. How it works is you have 5 minutes. I will time you and I will let you know when you're a minute out, just so that you know that you need to wrap up. So my apologies in advance for interrupting you, but it's really just to let you know when to start to wrap up. If you have any questions throughout the proceedings, then just let me direct your questions through me as the chair. And with that, I think we'll get started. So first on our agenda this evening is Heather Cochran. Heather, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Sure, thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? Great. Good evening, trustees. My name is Heather Cochran, and I'm a director of the Oak Bay Police Board. I am pleased to deliver remarks on behalf of our board to inform your deliberations on this important matter. You have in your agenda package a copy of our board's May 4th letter, so I'll keep my remarks brief. If you've not already had an opportunity to review our letter, I encourage you to do so. The key themes running throughout our submission are that 1, the Oak Bay Police Board is committed to working in partnership with the school board to ensure the SPLO program is safe and inclusive for all members of the school community. 2nd, that the SPLO program should provide benefit to schools, both students and staff. And 3rd, that the SPLO program should fit into a broader vision of safety in the community and provide connections to other services, resources, and partners. There's no reason why SPLO programs cannot be delivered in this manner, and there's no question in our minds that they should be. We take seriously concerns raised regarding the impact of the SPLO program on Indigenous, Black, and other marginalized students, and we share the goal of creating safe and inclusive schools that uphold human rights. Police boards have a unique and significant role to play in achieving this, thanks to our statutory mandate to provide civilian oversight of police. Crucially, police boards are independent of municipal and provincial governments and distinct from police departments. As set out in BC's Police Act, a key part of police board's role is to establish policies and set the strategic direction for the department. The Oak Bay Police Board is further distinguished by the fact that ours is a community policing organization. Simply put, the community policing model advocates community partnerships and collaboration as a means of achieving public safety and preventing and resolving problems. This includes collaboration with your board. SPLOs from our department similarly take a collaborative approach, working together with teachers and school administrators. I want to emphasize that SPLOs do not independently participate in student behavior management or surveillance. The SPLO program plays a vital role in community policing, and the feedback we've received on our program from a variety of stakeholders, including students, parents, teachers, and school administrators, has been consistently positive. I believe you've received correspondence supporting this from members of the school community that's served by Oak Bay's SPLO program. Our department has seen firsthand that students who have built a positive relationship with members of our department through the SPLO program are more likely to seek help if they're victimized or witness criminal activity, and that they experience less trauma when involved in events necessitating a police response, like the threat of gun violence at Oak Bay High School last November. Significantly, feedback received through the SPLO program in relation to that particular event also led to trauma-informed changes to school lockdown procedures. And I think that's a great example of the kind of iterative process that we have in our program. Barring police officers from attending school functions or providing mentorship removes crucial opportunities for building positive relationships that support trust and collaboration. Eroding trust and collaboration in policing does not make schools or students safer. Students are also members of the broader community, and regardless of whether they encounter police in schools, students are likely to encounter law enforcement at some point, whether as a witness to or victim of a crime or otherwise. And they should have the benefit of a police department that they know and trust and that works collaboratively with community partners. Last, and with regards to the letter that you received as trustees from the BC Human Rights Commissioner, in our view, the research cited there does not support immediately ending SD61's SPLO programs, but it does highlight the need for further research to be conducted in our community that centers the experience of marginalized students and employs high-quality evaluation strategies. I'll close just by emphasizing that the Oak Bay Police Board would be pleased to collaborate with your board in supporting this important work, including by liaising with other regional police boards. Our students deserve nothing less than our joint best efforts in this regard. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks very much, Heather. You are actually ahead of time, so I appreciate that. And thanks so much for being here tonight. Please extend our thanks to the other members of your board. Okay, so folks, the next presenter we have joining us this evening is Chief Dean Duthie from the Saanich Police Department. Chief Duthie, when you're ready, again, the floor is yours. And again, I will let you know when you're 1 minute, when there's 1 minute remaining.
Thank you very much. Again, my name is Chief Constable Dean Duthie, and I'm of the Saanich Police Department. I'd like to start off by thanking the chair and the board for allowing me to speak this evening. The School Liaison Officer Program has been a very instrumental part of our youth, school, and community relationship building for decades. I appreciate that you have a very important decision to make, as it will not only impact our school environments, but also impact the lives of youth, families, and communities. It is vital that you have a strong understanding of what our school liaison officers do on a daily basis, as I know that there's other reports from different parts of the world in different countries where their programs and their agendas and objectives are quite different. What our purpose is and how they contribute to youth empowerment, learning, confidence building, emotional intelligence, and safety. We as police, we are committed to continuous improvement, growth, and modernization in all aspects of what we do to engage, to connect, and to keep our community safe, peaceful, and enjoyable for all people and all families. Our school liaison officer's primary focus is on relationships. It's on inclusiveness, trust, and personal and community safety. Building off the foundation of relationships and trust, our officers devote their professional skills, abilities, and training to assist students develop and strengthen social and emotional intelligence by helping them learn about decision-making, safety, and personal goal achievement. These officers share very important safety information with students, families, teachers, administrators to bring awareness and a sense of learning so good decisions can be made and harmful actions can be prevented. This includes, but is certainly not limited to, bullying, bike safety, online safety, and drug and alcohol education. Our officers work with the administration staff to support students' needs and, where possible, help them avoid what could result in criminal consequences. This is done by working with all partners in a really inclusive fashion to help the student learn and grow from their mistakes while empowering them to believe in themselves and strive for the goals and dreams that they have, because they all have them. Our officers support the staff, the students, and help to ensure that their educational experience is one where they feel safe, they feel heard and supported through the challenges that occur daily in our school systems and in our community. Our officers serve as an important conduit for information sharing and supportive networking. We help families connect with youth mental health resources when required. We help connect families to cultural resources to guide students who may be experiencing bullying or other challenges integrating into school systems. And we've been invited to play basketball with kids, floor hockey. We participate in lockdown drills and education supporting those elements. These are all really important functions that are balanced between building relationships and helping bring awareness and education into their lives. We engage in open communication talks about current issues in the media with high school students and encourage their participation because their voices need to be heard. They matter, and their thoughts on what we can do as a community to support one another. This is such a vital part of the formative years, and to build on these relationships and have that support from police officers who are part of the community and have devoted their careers and lives to helping others and keeping others safe is so important. Teachers are extremely supportive as well. Students are happy to see our officers every time they show up in schools. And I've been told that the smiles on their faces, the high fives that happen, and the camaraderie that is built in those situations.
Sorry, Chief,
really
you have 1 minute left. Again, sorry to interrupt, just letting you know you have 1 minute.
No problem, thank you. And I have been told time and time again, not only do the students learn from us, but we learn from them. Other jurisdictions have removed police from schools in the past, and as likely you've heard, many of them are now bringing police back into schools. Let's not make this same mistake and go backwards in time, only to suffer some consequences that could result. We continue to receive overwhelmingly positive feedback from students, teachers, and administrators. These words, thoughts, and feelings come from a true and authentic place. It is important that we strengthen relationships, not dismantle them. We as a community, schools, youth, family, police need to work together, collaborate, grow, and fulfill our collective purpose. To do this, students need to feel empowered, safe, and confident, as they are our future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you being here tonight. Next on our community presenters list is Mr. Mark Jenkins. Whenever you're ready, again, the floor is yours.
Hi, Nicole. Sorry, can you hear me? Good. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak again to this board. As a previous teacher and a school liaison officer, this is an area that I'm passionate about. I'm also concerned that decisions made in regards to the school liaison program will be done based on inaccurate information presented to the trustees. A number of presenters have specifically accused Victoria SLOs of being racist, victimizing marginalized youth, using intimidation and violence to gain respect, targeting those with disabilities, and victimizing the LGBTQIA2S+ community. The Victoria Police Department has not officially had SLOs for the last 5 years. Prior to this, I was one of the last SLOs in Victoria. This accounts for the last 9 years and would put me subject to these accusations. I cared for every student and built hundreds of relationships, many who had initial distrust towards authority. I have never used any of these horrific tactics stated by these speakers. Students opened up to me because of the relationships developed. I was a former elementary school teacher in the district and absolutely loved returning to schools as a police officer. To now hear what has been stated about SLOs in Victoria is not only extremely hurtful, but is completely fabricated and untrue. I asked the board to carefully look at the research being referenced by the speakers making these accusations. It is US based and appears to follow what is known as the school to prison pipeline trend. I pose the question, is this research being used because there isn't any research here to support their cause? Yesterday, a letter was emailed to all parents in the district. This letter was to inform parents of the gang infiltration in our schools. The letter also speaks to the increase in violence, assaults with weapons, drug trafficking, extortion, and intimidation of replica firearms and knives. This is in our schools, and it is happening now. This is unprecedented, and the threat is very real. Matt Christie, during his presentation to the trustee, clearly stated that our schools are safe. This is an inaccurate statement. This needs to be corrected, as there is risk to both students and schools in the entire region. School boards, schools, and police, including the Gang Task Force, are now working together to keep these gangs out of our schools. Pulling police out of schools now would be irresponsible and would be a massive risk to all students and staff. Across the country, SLO programs are being reinstated. Vancouver school trustees have recently reinstated their school liaison program, and Toronto is considering the same. In the US, Boston has just reinstated their program, and this was due to the Black and Latino communities demanding police presence because their children no longer felt safe. London Breed, who is the Black female mayor of San Francisco, ran her 2018 campaign on the promise of defunding the police. She recently openly admitted that this was a mistake and has reversed her decision due to the negative impact it has had on the marginalized communities. What is now happening across Canada and the US completely contradicts the research presented here. In many cases, this strong message of bringing back police to our schools and communities is coming from the marginalized communities. This is not research, this is fact. To conclude, the biases toward police are because of the action of a few. These bad officers should be held accountable for their actions, but not every police officer should wear the blame of these few, and nor should it give justification to further support the ideology of defunding the police. This is just not fair. In 2018, the Canadian Centre for Child Protection released the outcome of the most comprehensive study in Canadian history. The study focused on child abuse cases involving staff and students from kindergarten to grade 12. The outcome of this study, which was linked to sexual offenses, has been described by the Centre as unquestionably alarming. It should be noted that 86% of offenders were employed as teachers.
Well, Mr.
These
Jenkins, you have
teachers
1
preyed
minute.
upon the vulnerable, thank you, the innocent, and many of whom were from marginalized communities. I will be the loudest to defend teachers. To hold all accountable for the actions of a few is completely unreasonable, it is irrational, and quite simply not fair. To raise a child, it takes a community. In worlds so fractured, we need to come together. As a parent, a police officer, former SLO, and school teacher, I can tell you I don't have all the answers, but all of us as a team can work together to figure it out. Ideologies need to be put aside, and only working together do we protect the most precious members of society, our children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time this evening. All right, so our next community presenter is Matt Christie. Matt, the floor is yours when you're ready.
All right, can you folks hear me okay?
Loud and clear,
Okay,
thanks.
perfect. All right, good evening, school trustees. I'm here to speak to you one final time on the issue of SPLOs and answer any remaining questions on ending these programs. My name is Matt Christie. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a grade 3-4 teacher. I'm the social justice chair for the GVTA. I've also sat on the SPLO review committee for the last 3 years. By this point, you've all heard lots of discussion on the state of SPLOs and have had time to read through extensive documents that help to frame this issue. I understand that the SPLO program has run in our district for many years and that it can be daunting to think about what it might mean to disband it or do things differently. This is why tonight I want to spend the few minutes I have with you to talk about the exciting opportunity I think we have with this decision. This is a chance to truly embody our district value of social responsibility and justice and show how we can create a better world. My hope is that you understand that by ending SPLO programs, we aren't losing something, but rather gaining the chance to advance equity and reshape how we support students in our district. It's important to remember that ending SPLO programs would still allow for the use of police where appropriate, such as criminal investigations and in lockdown situations. If we end these programs, we are simply detasking police from things that they're not properly equipped to do in the first place, and ensure that staff and students who have experienced trauma from police feel safe in schools. I want to draw your attention back to the letter submitted by the GVTA concerning SPLO programs and the recommendations outlined in it, which are also in the report that you folks received. These recommendations, if instituted, would clearly define the roles of police in schools, which up until this point have been inconsistent throughout the district and lack safeguards to ensure that student rights are upheld. The recommendations highlight the need to strengthen student rights when interacting with police by providing students a clear procedure to raise concerns and complaints, and the need to ensure that if students find themselves in a matter of criminal investigation, they are afforded their constitutional rights to access counsel and due process. The recommendations also ask that we build oversight for police within a school context, including impartial reviews and clear tracking by administrators for what police are being used for. Further recommendations state that police should never be used for behavior management or disciplinary actions within schools. That curriculum programs such as drug use, gender-based violence, and bullying prevention are best presented by community-based organizations that have specialized expertise in the area and work from a trauma-informed, evidence-based, and harm reduction approach. That intensive behaviors or mental health crises need to be supported by properly trained practitioners, such as counselors, social workers, nurses, EAs, and behavioral support teachers. All of these recommendations point to our fundamental need to shift the way that we approach intensive behaviors, misconduct, and mental health crises in our schools. As educators, we understand that the best response to a student in crisis is support, care, and connection to their community. We must hold to our fundamental understanding that children are in a state of development, of coming to know the world, and they are being shaped by their experiences at school. How we respond to their needs, the challenges they face, and the mistakes that they make influence who they become, how they view the world, and what they believe is possible for the future. The criminal justice system, and by extension police, don't hold the same fundamental understandings. The criminal justice system emphasizes law and order in a manner that is decontextualized from the health of the community and focuses on individual acts of misconduct. To a police officer, prevention can largely involve the surveillance of possible threats, which is an act that often leads to students developing a self-perception of deviance and further isolates students from the community. To an educator, prevention is about addressing the needs of a student so that they develop a healthy connection to the community so they never become a threat. We need to think about how students and families can access support. In my previous role as a behavior support teacher, something I saw which is reinforced in the research provided in the report is that often students and their families do not receive adequate access to community support until their behaviors have escalated to a point where police become involved. The criminal justice system should not be the means to access adequate support. We can do better. We can provide safe, healthy, and equitable supports grounded in community that embody a holistic approach from the onset of a child's schooling career. When we detask police by ending SPLO programs, we have an opportunity to prioritize a school system that is rooted in community building, trauma healing, and student nourishment. By creating community connectedness, we make schools safer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, that was exactly 5 minutes, so I appreciate that. Okay, Elaine, welcome. And again, the floor is yours when you're ready.
Thank you, Nicole. Everybody, I apologize. I knew I was presenting this evening. However, I only just learned about this yesterday, so I have not actually prepared a statement the way everyone else has. I appreciate that I got to go last, and I just wanted to pull out the things that I think what I'm going to do is to read a letter that I submitted long ago when I was actually originally part of this committee, and for reasons that I'm not clear on, I was unable to pick up where I left off when I had to take a bit of a break and attend to my family matters. I do realize I have 5 minutes here. I will read parts of that letter. And in reading that letter, I wanted to pull out the pieces about police and the focus on keeping the community safe and inclusive, and SPLO officers offering benefits to stakeholders, including families and students, and to provide services to people. I also wanted to pull out where Chief Duthie was speaking to how our SPLOs might affect youth and families, or as I'm about to present, how they don't affect youth and families. And it would have been nice if we had some engagement. To speak to youth empowerment and the possibility or potential in that, in terms of speaking to safety, about engaging community, about developing relationships, about training for SPLO officers, and speaking to education pieces such as drug and alcohol, and where they might be able to mitigate their own issues as students to prevent, problems in their future where criminal matters are concerned. And also where SPLO officers are supposed to help students feel safe and heard and supported in an environment in terms of collaboration with students and collaborations with families. And yeah, about, understanding that it takes community to raise a child. Thank you, Matt Christie, for your summary of where we might actually be able to allocate resources, because what I'm about to speak to speaks to definitely defunding the whole SPLO program, and and just tasking those resources elsewhere. And given my role, which you're about to learn about, those of you who don't know me, you'll understand where I'm coming from. So I'm just going to read bits of the letter now, and if I can find it, sorry. Shoot. I can't find it. I had it up. Okay, I'm just going to read it off my phone. Okay, so I wrote to the school board and I presented this earlier. To whom it may concern, I've come to learn of your committee. It's been I believe it's important to share a personal experience. Some of you may be familiar with my daughter. She graduated South Park in June 2018. Her experiences there were varied and sadly included police. Unfortunately, the SPLO played no role in supporting her sister, nor myself when police became involved. This begs the question, what roles were SPLOs supposed to play? My daughter was struggling with the trauma of feeling mistreated by her father, and after the separation, abandoned. As a highly sensitive child, her response to the situation was self-blame, guilt, and shame. She was at times psychotic, self-harming, and outwardly aggressive, sometimes to the point of clearing out a classroom, and I believe even a whole floor. She was tormented. She carried shame for the judgment, and she felt from some of the adults in the school, and deep regret and remorse for scaring some of the other children, or incidentally inflicting pain upon people who may have incidentally been in her path when she was in an emotional crisis. Was the SPLO officer introduced to provide additional support at this time? No. I wanted to add some context here in terms of this all happened in—
Elaine, you have 1 minute left.
Okay. By May of 2018, my daughter's IEP was adjusted and only police were called. By May, another child spat on my daughter twice while she was in a bathroom stall. Following the second assault, my daughter escalated, chasing another child around the grounds. She was eventually apprehended under the Mental Health Act. Obviously, I don't have time to finish this letter, and it's unfortunate because I actually wanted to point out the fact that I'm a psychiatric social worker, have been for 5 years. I used to be on part of the ACT team in Victoria, and I understand mental health very well. The SPLO officers, they have not served a purpose in terms of engaging families. We had several encounters with police, and the SPLO officer was not present at all. Both my children believe that we should just defund the program because of the fact that we were offered no support. I had to make a complaint through the Office of the Police Commissioner's Office to actually attend to the fact that the police traumatized my child. If SPLO officers had been involved, it would have been a different ballgame.
Sorry, Elaine. Unfortunately, you're out of time, but we do appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you.
And sharing your experience with us.
Thank you.
Okay, folks. Again, I just want to say thank you to all of our presenters. And I'd like to move us forward in our agenda this evening. We have a number of pieces of correspondence in the agenda. It's not all the correspondence received by the committee, obviously. It's some of the correspondence. The rest of the correspondence should be available via the links provided in the agenda packet. But I did want to, I'll just note for the board in particular, benefit that the memo that I provided as part of the report out from the committee was not included in the packet, but it has been added as a supplemental document on the website, and it was included in the Ed Policy packet on the 1st of May. So just to highlight that that was left out of the packet. Okay, so we have a number of pieces of correspondence at B. I wondered if anybody would like to pull any of that correspondence for discussion. Trustee Kwan, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a few. I probably will just go in sequential order. So first of all, I'm looking at page 29. I'm going to go there myself. It's the second last paragraph there on page 29.
And which letter is this, sorry?
It's the, sorry, I will get there. I'm scrolling on my tablet while I'm on my.
No problem. Yeah, take your time.
Okay. So this is the support network for Indigenous women and women of color.
Okay.
So 29 of the pack up. Second last paragraph. Just some stats there that I wanted just to highlight, and so I don't know if you want me to read it out or if I just highlight it.
That sounds good. I think that might be easiest, just to make sure everyone understands what it is you're pointing out.
Sure. These feelings of unsafety are not surprising. In 2017, 30% of 67 SLO incident reports came from Esquimalt High School, which we all know has a large demographic of BIPOC students. In 2019, Vic PD submitted 128 incident reports for arrests at school or on school property. Only 4% of 2017 SLO incident reports indicate that they may have begun with a student reaching out to an SLO. This means that police enforcement is happening on SD61 property, while the SLO program is falsely advertised as a community policing tool focused on diversion from the criminal justice system. Armed police are not an appropriate student support or disciplinary response. So I have a number of things to pull, and I just wondered if you want me to do that all at once, or if you want to make sure that there's I don't monopolize the time here.
Yeah, no, not at all. We're going to take our time this evening. There's plenty of time to go through this in a careful manner. So go ahead if you want to give us the next piece you want to pull out, and then we'll pause for some discussion.
Yeah, so the next one was page 31 to 33, which is an email from, and I'm going to probably butcher her last name, but Jody Pavesic, is that Pavesic? Sorry. So I just wanted to point out, I won't read the whole email, but she was wonderful with supplying us the courses that the Saanich PD has to, has been mandated to take over the last few years. I did reach out to Jody on my own afterwards, and she gave me a lot more information, which was great. And I just wanted to point out that I did actually find out that after further inquiries that these courses are mandated, and that they are certificates are given upon completion. So the completion has to happen, and certificates need to go in the files, and that officers' files are checked periodically to ensure mandated courses have been completed, which was important for me to know, as to how we monitor that. So I wanted to share that with my colleagues as well, to make sure that they knew that, it's not just a list of courses but that they're actually mandated, and that certificates upon completion, and they are checked that they are completed. So that was the second one, and then I believe the last one is actually a question, and it was page 62. So again, I'm going to scroll there as fast as I can. Which was actually recommendations. And I did, so the first bullet point on that page 62, is model the GVTDAC for School Advisory Council. And this is me, again, probably just being a newbie or naive. I actually just wanted to ask if someone could actually elaborate on what GVTDAC stands for.
Yes, I will turn to staff. Confirm what that acronym stands for.
Thank you through the chair. I believe that acronym was brought up through the committee, but we were subsequently not able to find what that acronym stood for. So I'm not sure if a committee member knew, but we as staff could not allocate where that came from.
Thank you.
Thank you. And through the chair, that was the three pieces that I wanted to pull. So I'm back.
Okay, so thank you. Appreciate that. Great. I'm going to open the floor to trustees if there is any discussion around those points or any further pieces of correspondence that folks would like to pull out for discussion. Trustee Painter, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. To the best of my knowledge, this correspondence is not in the packet, but what I'm referring to is an email that was circulated around the district regarding notice of gang violence that was circulated through our schools to parents and staff. I received one as a parent myself. And I was just wondering, I'd like to get some clarification about the background on that letter. I believe there was mention of local police departments advising the district, and I'd like to start off with asking, what was the mechanism for that liaison? Was this a standing committee, or was it simply notified outwards? How did it happen?
Thank you, Trustee Painter. Again, I'll turn to staff to clarify the context.
Through the chair. We have what's called a regional safety committee, and the regional safety committee is made up of our police partners, which includes RCMP, Saanich PD, Vic PD, Oak Bay PD, and military PD. We also include our districts in the Lower Island, so Souk, Saanich, and our Francophone district, as well as our independent schools. And we meet on a regular basis. One of the meetings we had was on May the 18th. And in that meeting, a presentation was provided by Saanich PD, Vic PD, and MIST, which is the Mobile Youth Unit. And information that was shared to us during that presentation was regarding youth and activities associated with gang activity. What we were looking at were things like vaping and the sale of higher end clothing, and that this was turning up more and more in our community, and that we were seeing this within our schools, particularly with vaping. And we've seen in the news recently a number of vaping products were confiscated, if you will, by Saanich PD, and it was all part of that conversation. So we were informed by police that they are concerned about youth and gang-related activity within our community, Lower Island, and our response to that was to notify parents. If you're concerned about your child, if you see particular things occurring with your child, then there's support available for you, whether that be the school, whether that be community, or whether that be police. So that was where our particular letter came from.
Trustee Painter, did you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, follow-up. So I'd like to understand this regional safety committee. How frequently does it meet?
We meet probably 6 or 7 times per year.
And without getting into too much specific, but given that this was distributed to district parents, was there evidence that this is occurring in our schools at this time, in SD61 schools?
There's no direct evidence, although schools were starting to see connections and we're providing this information, particularly with vaping. And that seems to be the key, as the vaping products are what are being recruited, or students are being recruited to sell. And the people that are recruiting the students are related to gangs. So it's not a direct link, but the evidence that we have indicates that we are seeing products being moved into schools through recruitment processes. And I believe police could probably describe their investigation on that side of it better than I could for you.
Okay, thank you. I guess the last question is that in the 8 or so years that I've been on the board, I can't recall another time when this regional safety committee sent out advisory notices that were distributed to the district. I'd really appreciate getting a background on that, and perhaps as an in-camera item, I'd appreciate having a look at the minutes of some of these meetings to better understand what other issues are being raised. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Painter. Trustee Mabowi.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question that sort of stems from Trustee Painter's question, and that is, I'm wondering what the relationship between the SPLO program and the Regional Safety Committee is. Like, how do the two bodies communicate with one another, and does the Regional Safety Committee rely on the SPLO program, and what's the nature of that reliance?
Thank you, Trustee Mabowi. Again, I'll turn to staff, who I think are best placed possibly to respond to that.
Through the chair, we do have some SPLOs that are attending the committee. However, it's not specific to SPLOs. Members of the various police departments attend. Investigators, sergeants, constables, so there's a number of different officers that attend this particular committee.
Mabowi, did you have any follow-up? Okay, thank you. Trustee Gagnon, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just looking for clarification on who is representing School District 61 at these committee meetings.
Again, I'll turn to staff to provide that information.
Through the chair, I represent the district at this committee as the Safe Schools Coordinator for the district.
Okay, folks. Before we move on from correspondence, although it's not in the packet tonight and because it's come up as a question, I just want to clarify, because I think it's really important that we're very clear and factual in our communication, especially as it relates to the concerns expressed in the letter that went out to families about the risks of gang recruitment. And I just want to clarify that, again, this really is a question for the superintendent, that my understanding is that there have been no incidents at our schools or in our district involving our district students while they're at school. But I want to clarify to make sure that we are 100% clear on what the situation is.
Thank you. And through the chair, Duncan, can you please clarify if you mean related incidents with regards to gang related incidents, or correct, just so we know what yes. Okay. So a few things. One, it's important to recognize that when letters like this are sent in what we believe to be proactive measure, we will learn more information as time goes on, because people now are more aware of what to look for. So as we have sent the letter, there has been information that has been shared, and this is not for this evening's dialogue, but I think it would be fair to say that after letters are sent and people are more aware of what is happening both in community and in school, they will come back to say, oh, I'm aware of this, I wouldn't call it an incident, but this event or this particular situation. And so I think we are now, and we have had conversations with secondary principals around things to be mindful of, things to watch for. And so they will share back with us, and I think continue to share back with us what they're seeing and hearing. So this letter wasn't sent because of an incident, but I can say as we move forward, we will very likely hear and from individuals on information.
Okay. Excuse me, folks. So I think I've reached the end of our correspondence section, unless there's anything else that trustees would like to pull from the agenda in relation to the correspondence. And again, acknowledging that this is not a complete list of all the correspondence received by the committee, but all the correspondence should be available via the links in the packet. Okay, so I'm going to now move us on to C. And so C is the school police liaison officer program review committee's recommendations. Because the memo that accompanied the recommendations was not included in the packet, not included in this packet, but was included in the policy packet earlier this month. I just wanted to clarify for folks that committee did not reach a consensus. And so what you're seeing in the packet in terms of the list of recommendations is everything that came from the various members of the committee, regardless of their perspective or view. And so it's a complete list of all the contributions of all the members of the committee. So with that just clarified, I want to open the floor up for discussion. I know we have a number of partners with us this evening, and just want to honor their presence around our table and just provide an opportunity for those partners if they would like to say a few things in relation to the subject matter for discussion this evening. So just wanted to open the floor to our representatives, our stakeholders here this evening. Okay, let me know if at any point as we progress through the evening, whether the reps want to contribute anything, then please let me know and I will pause and give you some space to do so. All right, trustees, so looking at the recommendations, does anyone have any questions, any thoughts, any points of clarification? Trustee Mabobi, go ahead.
Yeah, I just I'm hoping to clarify, is COPS for Cancer a part of the SPLO program?
Thank you, Trustee Mabobi. Again, I'll turn to staff to clarify that.
Thank you, and through the chair, COPS for Cancer is a large part of Reynolds and Oak Bay, where I spent the last 9 years at both those schools, and so though the police liaison officer is not specifically in charge of that, they're heavily involved in that, like all community people in those schools. But it is not something that they run or organize. It's school driven.
Thank you. Any other questions or points of clarification? Trustee Painter, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And this is one of those situations where I found it challenging at times to maintain a consistent thread when reviewing all the information, simply because there has been so much information provided. I did find it really helpful to be able to examine the job descriptions that were provided from different police departments. And I would like to seek clarification if there is, but my understanding at this point in time, it is essentially, well, our local police departments have school police liaison programs and officers and job descriptions. The school district does not appear to. I've been able to find, specific descriptions about roles, responsibilities, reviews, reporting. When one of the biggest challenges I had when trying to understand, to get an understanding of the program, was that I simply couldn't find information, couldn't access information about interactions of police staff with the schools, beyond a summary of the number of bike rodeos or whatever else, which is helpful and does speak to one aspect of the role. There are many other instances that were referred to in presentation, for example, interventions with students in schools, things like this, and none of that appears to have been recorded. So it was very difficult for me to even get an honest understanding of the roles of police liaison officers or how they have operated in our different schools. And for me, that's really at the core of this. It's not specifically about the police per se, but about the district and how we are playing a role in structuring the delivery of the services that are being offered. So am I missing the boat? Do we have this direction?
No, thanks, Trustee Painter. Appreciate your comments. I'll let staff kick off in terms of clarifying how this works and how the job descriptions came to be. But in the 3 years that I sat on the committee, I can tell you that the job descriptions in the pack-up were brought together through the efforts of a district staff, a member of staff, who communicated with the various departments in order to clarify the role and the differences between the role in various departments. So, but beyond that, I wonder if staff has anything else that they would like to add.
Yes, through the chair. The chair is correct. It was a member of the committee that was asked to look at the job descriptions and reach out to each one of the departments for those job descriptions. So they were generated by conversations with the departments, and they are not job descriptions provided as the school district.
Thank you. I guess I would just add that one of the challenges and from an accountability perspective here is that the district, we don't have any oversight powers, or we don't direct the work of the police, and so where there's a concern or a complaint that might come forward, there is a lack of clarity and clear process about how that would be dealt with. In theory, an individual would have to go down possibly multiple complaints tracks, both complaining to through the appropriate police complaints process, and then possibly complaining using through a district process as well. It's unclear what remedy, if any, the district could offer, because again, we don't. Our mandate is not to oversee the police. So if there's a concern, we would very much be reliant on the relevant police department's complaint process. Any other questions about the recommendations or what you found in the packet materials? I know they were extensive, which is why we gave you a few weeks to after ed policy to consider the information, because it is obviously very voluminous. Okay. All right, well, if there's no more questions of clarification, then I think what we'll do then is I certainly have some motions that I would like to present to the board this evening for consideration. But before we move into consideration of motions, I want to just pause and make sure that trustees, that you're comfortable moving on to that point. If you have more questions and you want to address those, or if you want to have any further discussion in advance of considering motions, then I want to take our time and make space to do that. So I'm really looking to my board colleagues for some direction about where you'd like to go this evening and whether you're ready to start considering motions. Trustee Bio, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm comfortable to move on unless anyone else, still would like to discuss further.
Thank you, Trustee Bio. Trustee Kwan?
I would agree with Trustee Bio. I think that discussion can naturally happen even with a motion on the floor.
Okay. And Trustee Mabobi?
Just agreeing.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Okay. All right. So I think we've got some consensus that we're ready to move on to motions. Because I want to present some motions for the board's consideration, I am going to ask the Vice Chair, Trustee Kwan, to virtually accept the gavel and take on the role of presiding officer while the motions are being presented. So Trustee Kwan, if you wouldn't mind.
Gavel virtually accepted.
Thank you very much. With appreciation. Okay.
Thank you. All right. So then Trustee Duncan, I would encourage you to bring forth your motions. Not sure whether you want to do, it sounds like you have more than one, so I'm not sure if you want to do them all at once, and then we can discuss from there and you can just read them all out. Does that sound fair? And okay.
Yeah, sure. That sounds good. What I'll do then is just in terms of sharing them so that the board can see them, I'm just going to email them and I'm going to send it to the trustees because I know staff, you'll also get them. Okay, so they're coming your way. I'll just pause and let you receive those and have a read through.
Okay, are those received? Everybody had a chance to read through them. Perhaps Trustee Duncan, for the purpose of making the public aware of your motions, if you don't mind reading them out.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Yeah, we'll do that. Okay, so the first motion is that the Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, direct the superintendent to end the SPLO program, and further, the superintendent will ensure that protocols are established in relation to the following matters: school emergencies, lockdowns, critical incidents, violent threat risk assessments, and ongoing district tracking of all student interactions with police while in the care of the Board of Education. And further, the superintendent will provide the Board of Education with a list of services no longer provided by SPLOs and suggestions for service provision moving forward. So that's the first one. The second motion is that the Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, direct the board chair to write to the Minister of Education and Childcare and the Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General, urging them to immediately commission research into the impacts of SPLO programs on K-12 students in British Columbia or in BC. Thirdly, that the Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, direct the board chair to write to the Minister of Education and Childcare and the premiers, requesting that the provincial government commit to adequate ongoing funding for civilian alternatives to SPLOs, such as civilian coaches, youth and family counselors, social workers, substance use educators, restorative justice initiatives, etc., so that all school districts have adequate resources to deliver necessary services through the education system, utilizing appropriately trained, certified, and regulated professionals. So if I may motivate Trustee Kwan, if
I was just wondering, do we want to go out to our partners and stakeholders before motivating? I'm gonna put the or open the floor to our stakeholders, rights holders, partners.
Point of order, Chair. Sorry, might I ask that we focus on one motion at a time? Getting into a conversation about all three could make for some confusing crosstalk.
Thank you, Trustee Painter. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to divide those three up, and we'll focus on the first motion first. I'll read that one out once more, and then we'll go to our rights holders and stakeholders to see if they have anything to comment before opening for discussion. So once again, the first motion reads that the Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, direct the superintendent to end the SPL program. And further, the superintendent will ensure that protocols are established in relation to the following matters: school emergencies, lockdowns, critical incidents, violent threat risk assessments, and ongoing district tracking of all student interactions with police while in the care of the Board of Education. And further, the superintendent will provide the Board of Education with a list of the services no longer provided by the SPLOs and suggestions for service provisions moving forward. All right, open the floor to our rights holders and stakeholders. Any comments? Okay, then I'll turn to you, Trustee Duncan, to motivate.
Apologies, if you'll just bear with me a second. I just procedurally, I just wondered before I get into motivating if I have a seconder.
Seconded by Trustee Bayo. And thank you, Trustee Duncan.
My pleasure. Thanks. Okay, so I guess I want to start by saying that in bringing this motion forward, it is in no way intended to be an indictment of policing or police. It is very much focused on the needs of all of our students, a consideration of some of the quiet voices that we don't always hear, and really acknowledging that there are going to be services moving forward where rightfully the police have a role to play. And what I'm hopeful that we can achieve is a situation whereby there are clear protocols enacted and agreements between the Board of Education in instances where it's appropriate to have police involvement. So that's really the goal, is to move away from having certain services provided by police, especially when those services can and should rightly be provided by relevant professionals, whether it be teaching staff, counseling staff, civilian mentors or coaches, and social workers. Police have a very difficult and important job to do in our communities, and I appreciate what they do, but from our perspective, our mandate is very much around education, and I think that it makes a lot of sense for us as a board to support the appropriate professionals to deliver services to students in the context of education, and then to be very clear when police do come in, because they do have a role to play, that there are protocols in place which ensure that there's appropriate levels of accountability and transparency and that govern that relationship. So I'm happy to take questions, and I'm looking forward to having the discussion as a board.
Thank you, Trustee Duncan. Trustees, any discussion, questions? Trustee Painter.
And I apologize that I'm only thinking of this now, but in line with my last comment about the district not actually having a program, is there any need to clarify what ending the SPLO program actually means as far as police involvement, police interactions with students, police activities in our schools? We don't have a program that we can simply say these things are no longer provided. We don't. So what does it mean to end the program?
Thank you, Trustee thank you, Trustee Painter. Trustee Duncan, did you want to answer?
Yeah, well, I could certainly answer from my own perspective in terms of what my intention was in proposing the motion. So although it's not directed by our district, you know, we are clear on what it is that happens and how police are utilized in schools, albeit not everything that police do in schools is reflected in job descriptions. But I think that gives us, you know, a good basis for, you know, many of the things that police SPLs do in schools. There's also the other things that go on that at the informal request of administrators in the context of particular students, which is not fully reflected in those job descriptions. So I guess what I would say simply is that what's happening now would end, and then we would look to establish protocols in areas where it's right and appropriate, you know, to have some police involvement, and we would be driving those protocols. We would be setting the agenda in consultation and in collaboration with policing partners, but in those specific areas where it's appropriate to have and right to have police involvement.
Thank you, Trustee Duncan. Anyone else? Have comments or discussion? If no, I will put myself in on the list. You know, I really wanted to point out here, this has been an issue that, you know, I have really struggled with. You know, I recognize my privilege, not just as with the color of my skin, but also perhaps class as well. So it's really difficult for me not to bring a bias into this and really, you know, look through a clear lens. And, you know, so you know, I've really tried to set that aside and taken everything, you know, the way it was meant to be, I guess, given to us. I think really, you know, my big concern here, and I think Trustee Duncan said it well, you know, is oversight, and that, you know, the SPLO program isn't under our mandate, and the funding comes through the police departments. And so, you know, the students are in the board's care while they're at school. And so, you know, we have our duty to our students to make sure that they are safe and that they feel, you know, they feel a sense of belonging and safe at school. And that's not by any means to say that having police officers on the school grounds would make them feel unsafe. But I also do hear, you know, we've seen anonymous letters come through that weren't included in the pack up, you know, of former students and others who, you know, were telling stories of their experiences and how those weren't safe experiences. And so, you know, taking those into account as well, you know, my experience is very positive with police officers in school. So I have to put that aside, and I do have to take in other perspectives as well. And the last thought I wanted to leave with everyone was, you know, our sanctuary school policies, the schools policy, which is fairly recent, and really, you know, aligning with that policy and, you know, how do we look forward with the SPLO program to, you know, be in the same spirit. So, yeah, I guess those are my thoughts right now, and I'll go to Trustee Bio.
Yeah, I have similar thoughts as you and Trustee Duncan, or Chair Duncan. I, you know, children spend a lot of time at school. It is I think, co-parenting relationship between teachers, schools, and families at home. And so when we are looking at something that impacts even a small percentage of the students in our schools and their ability to feel safe and comfortable in that environment, which is a second home, they're sometimes there for as much time as they see their parents outside of school or guardians, depending on, how busy life can be. We have a responsibility to make sure that that is a safe and inclusive space. And knowing the history of Canada and the history of policing, the history of education, and how systemic racism is woven throughout our society, throughout our education program, throughout our policing system. One way that we can work to commit to our ideals of anti-racism, inclusivity, is to separate this tie currently, because we are receiving reports from students and community members that it doesn't always feel safe. And that is an appropriate reaction to the systemic harm that has been done to communities in Canada and continues to be enacted. This is not to say that any individual is, purposefully enacting harm, but as a teacher, I have to, constantly examine my own practices as a white person, and really consider the fact that when you grow up in a society, when you are embedded in a society that has these systems in place for hundreds of years, you are affected. And sometimes these uncomfortable conversations are really what's needed to show that we are supporting all of our students in our schools. Thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Bayo. Yes, Trustee Gagnon.
Thank you, Chair. It's a tough decision when it comes to looking at the safety of those in our care. When I was first looking at this issue, when I was first elected, not that long ago, it came to me that it's weighing school police liaison officers can make people feel more safe. I think that would not be a lie to say. I'm sure there's multiple people in our community of our schools that feel safer with the police there. On the flip side, I'm also sure that there are people that would feel safer without them there. It's a matter of weighing those and really seeing what we can do to appease both. And it's difficult because I don't like the idea that this is going to leave somebody disappointed, but unfortunately, when you get elected to a board, that sometimes you have to make decisions where not everyone's going to come away happy. I am reluctant to how do I say this? I'm reluctant to offer my support to the police liaison officer program just because of a little bit of what Trustee Bayo said, is that we have a responsibility to our students. We have a responsibility through truth and reconciliation. We have a responsibility as responsible adults to make sure that school is a safe and inclusive space for all. And if we are ignoring and excluding those students who already feel ignored and excluded, then we're not doing our job effectively. And I know that there will continue to be work done between the district and the different police departments throughout our region to keep our schools safe. But to me, it's not necessary that the programs and the continuous presence police in our schools or the way that we go about doing that. Thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Gagnon. Any other discussion? Yes, Trustee Painter.
Thank you, Chair. In my mind, this entire discussion from the outset has been one that has brought forth a lot of polarized views, and I feel that one of the big issues here is that we're really struggling in some respects as a society, as a community. And one of the challenges that police face is that they don't get to look the other way. It's for different reasons. They're not unlike our teachers in that our teachers work with every child in their care. And they don't get to pick and choose who they support or who they don't support. And police also don't get to pick and choose what they do. And as a consequence, they're often labeled because they're directed to address the homeless issue, or they are brought into situations to deal with mental health issues because our system lacks the necessary supports to provide alternatives. And a lot of those situations can end up painting police with in a very negative fashion, simply because they don't have a choice about where to go or what to do. And I regret that we have come to a polarized situation in so many aspects of our community where it's difficult to have an open dialogue of values and interests. And it is my hope that regardless of the decision tonight, that we are able to engage in productive conversations with local police and other service providers on how we can work most effectively to provide the supports that would benefit the community that we support, the students and the families. My biggest issue with this entire matter is that our district has not taken an active role in defining how we will engage with police on school grounds. And as a consequence, just from reading letters, it's really clear to me that a lot of people have a lot of different ideas of what a school police liaison officer does, how often they're in the schools, and perhaps this is shaped by popular media, movies, TV from elsewhere, etc. And in a lot of respects, I think that the role is not well understood, and it concerns me that aspects of the job may develop in basically an ad hoc fashion without oversight, without proper tracking, without recourse to any kind of assessment or review. And I think that that's primarily a shortcoming that is within our district. I recognize that the district has no mandate over police activity, but I would suggest that where there are opportunities to work collaboratively, I do believe that local police, as has been stated, would welcome those opportunities to work towards common goals and common understandings. And so that's where I like to think we have an opportunity to move forward. My challenge right now is that I don't see us having an effective program simply because we provide no guidance or definition of it. And for that reason, I believe that we need essentially to start from scratch. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Painter. Yeah, I think it's important to note that, this motion that Trustee Duncan has put forward doesn't by any means mean no police presence or collaboration with the departments that we have in the past. It's simply taking a look at what that looks like in our schools and being more collaborative and having a little more say and a little more oversight as to what that looks like. So thank you. Trustee Mobobi.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to add a quick comment. Well, firstly, I want to thank everyone for the discussions so far. I think everything has been worded extremely well, and I feel basically in agreement with everybody who's spoken regarding this motion. One of the things that really did stick out to me, and this comes back to it being a systematic issue, is the list of recommendations is 10 pages long. And these are just recommendations of things we ought to keep and change and things we ought to get rid of. Isn't even like a list of things we ought to just keep without changing. So seeing this 10-page long list really does make me agree with Trustee Painter in that we need to start from scratch. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Mobobi. All right, any further discussion? Wondering, Trustee Duncan, before we put this to a vote, if you have any closing that you'd like to make.
I think I just want to say that I really appreciate my colleagues' thoughts, and I really appreciate how difficult the conversations have been over the last few years, both at the committee table at times and just in the community. I think, everybody on all sides, and no matter what their views are, at their core wants what's best for students, care deeply about our students doing well and feeling safe and being able to pursue their aspirations, their dreams, and in a learning environment where they feel at ease and safe and supported. What I would say is that I really do think that there's a significant accountability and oversight gap here as a result of kind of where we are with the program, which I don't think can be remedied in a meaningful way without ending it, and then looking to establish protocols where it's appropriate to have police involved. So I'm hoping that is what we're going to achieve this evening, is to start that process. But I also just want to say that student rights have to be at the core of what we do. So, and the risks when things go wrong, where there is possibly a lack of clarity or around oversight or over protocols when it comes to these sorts of informal mentorship type style interactions, the risks and the impacts on students when that goes wrong can be huge. And so I think, we can't overstate that. When students are in the care of the Board of Education, we need to ensure that they're never put in a situation where they could be, criminalized by sharing something without proper counsel, because they think that because they've developed a relationship with a SPLO, that they're safe to share certain things. So when things go wrong, they can go very, very wrong. And so, I'm hoping that we can achieve some clarity about when there is involvement, what that looks like, and that very much needs to be driven by the board and by the district, because at the end of the day, we are the ones that are accountable for the students when they're in our care. So thank you. And that was it. Appreciate Chair Kwan the time.
Thank you, Trustee Duncan. All right, so I don't want to rush this, so I know we've had closing, but if there's any other comments that have come up, I'm more than happy to make space, or we can put this to a vote. We're ready to do that? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read out the motion again, that the Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, direct the superintendent to end the SPLO program. And further, the superintendent will ensure that protocols are established in relation to the following matters: school emergencies, lockdowns, critical incidents, violent threat risk assessments, and ongoing district tracking of all student interactions with police while in the care of the Board of Education. And further, the superintendent will provide the Board of Education with a list of the services no longer provided by SPLOs and suggestions for service provision moving forward. Okay, without further ado, all those in favor? All right, I think that's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. All right, we're moving on to our second motion. I'll read it out now and then we can move to our, I'll read it out. We'll look for movers and then we'll move to our partners. That the Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, direct the board chair to write to the Minister of Education and Childcare and the Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General, urging them to immediately commission research into the impacts of SPLO programs on K-12 students in BC. And a mover for that, I think, was Trustee Duncan. Do I have a seconder? Trustee Bayo, thank you so much. All right, discussion. Oh, sorry. First, let's move to our partners, our stakeholders and rights holders, if anyone has anything they would like to comment on. Okay, then looking to Trustee Duncan, if you'd like to motivate.
Yeah, just briefly, I think throughout this process, and I think it came to a head when we received a letter from the Human Rights Commissioner. There has been a realization that we need to be doing more on the research front in Canada. While there is Canadian research, it pales in comparison to obviously the research available from the US. And so, I think it behooves us as well as, the province to really take steps to understand the impacts and to conduct that research. That is not something that falls within our mandate. And so really, I'm hoping that we can move the dial a little bit, do some advocacy and urge the province to commission the necessary research.
Thank you, Trustee Duncan. Any discussion, any questions, comments? I don't see any hands. I will just comment myself then too, and I believe, with the Auditor General's report, that was actually part of the recommendations as well, was to get some of that data and information and research going. So, I feel, I'm in support. I think we're definitely on the right track, with this. Any other comments before we go to our vote? All right, I'm going to read the motion again. That the Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, direct the board chair to write to the Minister of Education and Childcare and the Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General, urging them to immediately commission research into the impacts of SPLO programs on K-12 students in BC. All those in favor? And that looks unanimous. Okay, so our last motion here, I'll read it out, that the Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, direct the board chair to write to the Minister of Education and Childcare and the Premier, requesting that the provincial government commit to adequate ongoing funding for civilian alternatives to SPLOs, such as civilian coaches, youth and family counselors, social workers, substance use educators, restorative justice initiatives, etc., so that all school districts have adequate resources to deliver necessary services through the education system, utilizing appropriately trained, certified, and regulated professionals. Going to our stakeholders and rights holders, are there any comments? Would anyone like to add anything there? I don't see any hands. Trustee Duncan, would you like to motivate?
Yeah, just briefly, there's I think a huge, this has come up in both the feedback we've received over the last few years, but also in the comments of some of my colleagues. You know, people are really struggling, and as a result, you know, the police are shouldering really a disproportionate responsibility in areas that really, you know, they're not equipped, they're not trained in order to, you know, to be providing services in areas like we spoke to mental health, but also when it comes to, you know, education and counseling supports and mentorship and so on. So my hope is really that, again, we can advocate to the province for adequate resources so that through the education system, we can properly resource and provide services with appropriately trained, certified and regulated professionals. I think in any other context, I mean, we wouldn't tell the police, you know, we wouldn't step in and do the work of the police services. And likewise, I don't think it's appropriate in instances where we see police doing the work of other trained professionals. So I'm hopeful that we can advocate and hopefully get the province to commit to some more funding to take some of that burden and pressure that we're hearing exists out there for students and families.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Duncan. Any discussion? Yes, Trustee Bayo.
I'm not sure if we seconded this one or
oh my gosh, thank you for
I can second it.
Thank you, Trustee Bayo, seconded by Trustee Bayo.
And I'll also say just that I support this as well. I think you know, there are instances as an educator where you are aware that you aren't, you know, as a classroom teacher equipped to help every student. No one person can support, you know, 22 kids in every situation. But having people on hand who, you know, have specific training in children, teen, mental health, you know, all of those, that huge scope of all that kind of social things that kids struggle with is a preferable option.
You're muted.
Thank you. I didn't hit the button good enough. It looks like. Thank you, Trustee Bayo. Any other discussion? All right, I might just add myself here then. You know, I just wanted to point out that, you know, Auditor General's report was, you know, really, you know, one of the things that really brought this to the forefront as well. You know, and I think this is a province mandate, and I think that it's, you know, it's time for them to really look to do some funding and do this work. And so, you know, by all means, this is their responsibility, and I think it's a great idea to really bring that to their attention again and make sure that you know, we're getting the funding we need to do this right. Anyone else? Anything to add? If not, I will read the motion before I call the question. That the Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, direct the board chair to write to the Minister of Education and Childcare and the Premier, requesting that the provincial government commit to adequate ongoing funding for civilian alternatives to SPLOs, such as civilian coaches, youth and family counselors, social workers, substance use educators, restorative justice initiatives, etc. so that all school districts have adequate resources to deliver necessary services through the education system, utilizing appropriately trained, certified, and regulated professionals. All those in favor? And once again, that is unanimous. Thank you, everyone, and appreciate the help through this from everyone. And now I will virtually pass the gavel back to our Chair Duncan.
Thank you, Chair Kwan. I really appreciate your assistance. Okay, so folks, we've reached the portion in our agenda which is question period. I'm just going to turn to staff to see if any questions have come in through the question period email address.
Through the chair, there are no questions in the question period box.
Thank you, Deputy Superintendent Caldwell. Appreciate that. And now we have reached the end of our agenda, and I just would like to call for a mover to adjourn. Thank you, Trustee Bayo, seconded by Trustee Mabobi. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you, folks.